Hello everyone, Roxanne here from the Phoenix Phenomenon, joined here with Darron Eastwell, who's a fellow Sunshine Coast resident. Darron had a mountain biking accident in May 2015 and has sustained an acquired brain injury from that accident. Now, I've got Darron here with me today. Thank you for joining me.
Hi Roxy, how you going?
Yeah, good. Love to find out a little more about your journey. Obviously, it was a life-changing incident that you went through that day. But tell us a little bit more about what life was like for you before this mountain biking crash.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was my work life was probably the dominant aspect of my career. There, I was a 25-year banking career with the National Australia Bank. So I started when I was 18, where I lived in Victoria, and I just progressed through the years when I was constantly on the move. So I relocated from Victoria to the Sunshine Coast the first time back in 1994, I think it was. And I pretty much moved from Victoria to Queensland 3 or 4 times, Central Queensland and regional Victoria. So I had a long, successful career. I was married, I had 2 young kids, but it was all, I worked tirelessly on the banking career to be successful, to provide for my family. So I was always chasing that next promotion and doing what the bank asked, and really basically gave away, I sort of say now, that my personality was the bank. I just worked, ridiculous hours, and come probably, it could be 5-6 days a week where I was working 10, 12-hour days. That was quite long, and it was a demanding job, but I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot from it. I met so many different people from different organisations, different industries. And probably one thing I take out of I was first started in like retail banking, so the normal branch you go into, and I worked my way through that. And then I entered business banking, and then I was like an assistant to the managers, and then eventually I got the experience where I wanted to progress to management. And the last 10 years of the career, I was a business banking manager. And the last portfolio that I was looking after was about 150 million. I had staff under me, and I had to run a business banking centre, so it was quite responsibility involved, and just demanding, where it's part of the job, or in that corporate banking space, I suppose. But I actually got to near the end of, not the end, but I felt like the expiry date of my banking career was finishing. Like I got to the end where I sort of had enough. And my wife and I, we always wanted to settle back on the Sunshine Coast and call it home, place home. Yeah. We were married for, I think, for 20 years, and we've lived in about 17 different places, 17 different houses, just because we always moved and relocated. And our kids were getting to the age of secondary school. So we really wanted to base ourselves on the Sunshine Coast and call that home. And then we relocated back here on April 2015. But I'd only been here 4 or 5 weeks where I got the kids back settled into school. Me and my wife were both looking for work because we moved without permanent jobs at this stage. It was a bit of a risk, but we felt confident we'd be able to find work. And then come to May, I hadn't ridden for mountain bike ride for that time, 5 or 6 weeks. So I was really jumping at the bit to go for a ride, and so I decided to head up to Ep1 National Park. And I don't have any memory of the day at all. I have no recollection of waking up and driving there. And even what caused the accident, I have no memory of it either.
But I understand in the years that have passed, you have been able to piece together little bits and pieces of what transpired that day. Can you tell us a bit about what you've discovered?
Yeah, so we're sort of just talking to people that did find me. Like I was riding alone on the trails up at Ep1 National Park, and I was unconscious on the ground, and my bike was about 20, 30 metres away. And there was another rider riding by himself again, and he found me. He called the paramedics to come, and they took me. It took about 2-hour drive from Ep1 National Park, because where I was, I couldn't get an ambulance in there, so they had to get a full drive ambulance and then stretching me out and then see how far they can get me out. But just because I was in such a state of, apparently I was in a moaning and groaning, I couldn't talk, and the paramedics had to stop a few times along the road to settle me. Then I was taken to Nambour ICU, where I was treated for about 4 hours, I think it was, but I was still not fully conscious. And the doctors made the decision then to put me in a medically induced coma. And because of the state I was in, they weren't unsure of what the injuries that I suffered. So the first couple of days they took x-rays, MRI scans, CAT scans, you name it, they did it. And when they tested it, I had a fractured skull, a fractured neck, and a fractured spine, or T7 vertebrae. And it was diagnosed also a severe traumatic brain injury, or acquired brain injury, which is actually called diffuse axonal injury. And then and that's probably one of the most severe head injuries you could get. So they tried to wake me up a couple of times. About three days into the coma, they tried to bring me out of it. But I was just, once I was coming to, I was just pulling the cords out, or the lines, or the intravenous lines out, and then they sedated me again. And then, they on the 7th day was when they tried to wake me up again, and that's when I eventually woke up from the coma. And I knew, the only thing I could say, or try and speak, was I recognised my wife and my family, because my parents and sisters had flown up from Victoria. I recognised them, I could say their names, but I had no idea where I was or what had happened. I actually thought I was in Victoria, in a town where I grew up in. And it's almost like the old Darren finished back at the accident, and this new Darren was relearning to live again.
Did you get a sense of that straight away? Like, did you, like, once you were awake, did you feel that something was off straight away, or was that something that you came to realise as you were awake for longer?
Well, I have no memory of being, like, in hospital. Like, even today, I have no memory of the ICU when I was in the coma. When I first woke up, when I was at the Nambour Hospital for about 10 days. And they transferred me to Caloundra Hospital for about 2 weeks while I was waiting for a bed at the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Brisbane, in the brain injury rehabilitation unit. And once I got there, I was there for about 7 weeks doing rehab and just recovering. But yeah, the only real memory I have of being in hospital was the day I was discharged. I could remember walking out. I walked out unaided, but I didn't have to have a wheelchair or crutches, or I didn't have a limp. It didn't even look like I was a patient. And that's what a lot of the people would say when I was there. I can't remember this, but when I was doing rehab, the rehab people would come and get you from your room, and then they would take you to the occupation therapy or speech therapy or whatever I had to do. This one day, there's the occupation therapist walked past me about 3 times, and she's looking for somebody else. All she'd done is read the report. And reading the injuries and just thinking this guy's going to look all banged up and not looking real good. But I didn't look like I belonged there. Because the other things that I can remember is when I had to go back as an outpatient for rehab, I saw patients that were there, and it was horrific to see. Like, some patients that had part of their skull removed, where they have to around with a helmet to protect themselves, or they've got like a haloing traction, or they're either in a bed and they need 24/7 care.
Hmm.
It was a bit hard to see and to think that could have been me. But yeah, it was a bit surreal. It took a bit. The first time I had gone back there, I couldn't even remember the hospital or anything like that. So it was always like relearning everything.
Hmm. Okay. And I guess you probably have found out a fair bit from your wife and your family about that time in rehab and in the hospital since then. But I remember you saying in a previous chat that we had that your odds were not looking good for a portion of the time, perhaps when you were in a coma.
Yeah. Well, the doctors basically gave the worst case scenario to my wife and family. They basically said that Darren that will no longer be, and the injuries that he sustained is more likely if he does wake up from the coma, because 90% of the people that get the injuries that I had and they end up in a coma don't wake up. And they're basically in a vegetative state in bed where they need 24/7 round the clock care, and that's what they were told. But yeah, I've proved them wrong.
You did, and then some.
When another thing that I've learned so much about brain injuries and all these different injuries that I had. When in ICU, when a patient is admitted or they go into a coma, there's a thing in the medical world called the Glasgow Coma Scale, and they measure on 3 if you can move, if you can verbalise, talk, or anything like that, or you can feel sensation on your skin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's scored from a 3 to 15, 3 being a dead person, and 15 you're in a coma, but your prospects are going to be looking pretty good.
Yeah.
And I was scored 5.
Oh wow.
So wasn't looking real good. And yeah, there was times that my wife, she spent time there with me in bed where I can't remember, but she just thought I wasn't going to come back. My parents thought, what's going to happen if we lost him? So yeah, it's pretty. Like I said, I can't remember it, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just times there where it would have been so hard to experience or watch a loved one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And has she recounted to you what it was like for the moment that you did wake up?
Yeah. Well, she when they I don't even know what they do, but how they withdraw the drugs or the sedation drugs on you. And obviously, I woke up because I was intubated, I think they call it, when they get the tubes down your throat to breathe. And when I woke up, I tried to pull that out, and they were settling me down, and I was just saying to them, "What happened? Where am I? Like, did I recognise them?" And they were just so rats. And then because of the fractures in the spine and that, they weren't sure if I would be able to walk. So that same day I woke up, they tested me if I could stand, which I could stand, but I had to walk with an A-frame, like an elderly A-frame. And I walked that the day I woke up. But yeah, they've taken videos of that day as well, but it doesn't look like a 60, 70-year-old man who's hobbling on his A-frame. But it was a joy for them to see me finally awake after so long and what they'd been told.
Yeah, absolutely. Be like a miracle.
Yeah. It's pretty much. I believe it is. It's some things happen for a reason, and I've seen people that have had similar accidents, and I don't know the details of their injuries, but yeah, for me to be able to function pretty much normal, I still have my limitations of what I can do.
Yeah.
Pretty much function normally. It is a miracle.
Yeah. So what are some of the limitations that you're now, I guess, working through or living with?
Yep. Well, Probably the first is I haven't been able to work. So the 25-year banking career that I had ended. I've never been able to return back to work. I haven't been able to drive. So in Australia, I think there's actually laws. If you sustain a brain injury, you don't lose your license, but if you had an accident and they found out that you had a medical condition, you could be liable for whatever you did or if you hurt someone. I haven't been able to drive for 3 years. And on the positive side there, I'm going through the process of getting medically cleared to drive again. And I went for my first driving test or examination on Monday this week, which I did pass, which was an unreal feeling. Because 3 years sounds like it doesn't feel like a long time, but it's a long time.
Yeah.
It's just to get back behind the wheel and remember where I was going, because there was times that even when I was walking and using public transport, I just didn't know where I was going. I'd lose the name of the streets or things like that. But yeah, so that's working, driving. The fatigue levels, I still get very fatigued. So pretty much on about, say, 3-4 o'clock every afternoon, I'm pretty much done for the day.
Yeah.
Batteries run out. And I just, can't, anything after that, if I try and push myself, I'll just mess it up, or I'll get a bit frustrated and more cranky, and if I'm trying to do something where I'm going to use my brain on the computer or work something out, I'll stuff it up all the time. So fatigue, then with my speech, with the fatigue, everything else follows through. So I start losing my speech and I might stutter. I can't physically do what I used to do prior. But for the last probably 2.5 years, I've had a pretty heavy physical exercise routine. So once I finished the normal rehabs, we started to do our own. So I've done a lot of swimming. And they say swimming's good for the brain because you're using left and right hand sides of the brain and you're doing different motions at the same time. So I've done a lot of swimming and cardio exercise and strength and conditioning. So I've just pretty much 3 to 4 days a week I've had to build on. That's what I do now. Early on, about 2.5 years ago, I could only probably walk. I could literally just walk to my letterbox, come back, and I was exhausted. So I've had to set goals where they were achievable goals and then just increase those goals. So I just slowly walked further and did more than I could do. And I've just slowly over time, the fitness has returned, the perseverance that I can do has got better. But I still unable to do a lot of the physical things that I could, like get really dizzy, which that has now gone because I've gone down the naturopath way. I take no prescription medication, and I've used a local Sunshine Coast naturopath, and I've got supplements that I take daily, and it's another miracle. The dizziness is basically, it has gone. It's back to zero.
That's amazing.
What else? Other limitations are, like, they're not bad limitations, but they are, like, I can't have no sense of smell, a very limited sense of taste. My hearing has been sort of been turned up, so I can hear. They're more sensitive. It's like if I go to a shopping centre, it's almost early days. It was too much noise. I just couldn't myself. But I've got used to it now. And the vision at night time, like say you're in a car, passenger, and you see all the lights, I can't focus on it.
Sure.
So, yeah, the vision is impacted by it a lot. And my memory. So I still have bad memory days. I've got to try and really think, what's today? What am I doing today? So I've got a big whiteboard where I write everything up. I use my iPhone with a lot of alarms. So like this meeting today, I put an alarm on my phone to make sure I wouldn't miss it, and I use a lot of sticky notes.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. Actually,
Wonderful. And sorry.
one thing, the sticky note, when I first got out of hospital and my memory was so bad, my wife had to put a sticky note on every cupboard and drawer in the house to tell me what was in the kitchen, because I just couldn't remember where things were. So yeah, now I remember where they are, so it's taken 3 years. Yeah.
Are they still there, or have you been able to take them down?
Yeah, no, the sticky notes are gone.
Yeah.
But I pretty much remember where everything is now.
That's excellent. And that brings me to the other thing too. Your book, How I Broke My Brain. I love the title of that, by the way. Tell me about the process of the creation of that book for you. I understand it was a bit of almost a therapy process for you as well, and it's now gone on to, I guess, help so many people around the world who have picked it up and read it.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is, I never actually sat down to write a book because, again, my short-term memory was so badly affected. Part of my rehabilitation, the occupational therapist suggested that I had to start writing a daily journal. So, and the things that I had to write was just simple stuff like what the day is, what I'm supposed to do, or what I had done. So it might be 2 or 3 points. It all had to be handwritten. So I had to learn how to handwrite again too, because I'd forgotten how to use a computer and all technology. Even my phone, I didn't know how to use it. So every day I would write, I would leave the diary next to my bed, and the idea was when you wake up in the morning, the very first thing you do, even before you get out of bed, have a look at the diary and try and remember what I'd done the day before or what I'd written in the diary. And early on, I could not even remember where I put the diary. I'd lose it around the house. I wouldn't write anything in it, but just slowly over time, I got into a routine of remembering to write things and put it next to my bed and get up and I'd remember it. So then I just would write a little bit more and more each week. And then after that, it was a 6-month process of me doing that to help improve my memory and fine motor skills. And then I was still trying to work out what a brain injury was, because I kept on saying to myself, surely I'm going to be back to who I am. I've broken bones before, and 6 or 8 week period, you're back to normal. And surely I'm going to be right now. But with the brain injury, they say it's like a fingerprint. No two are the same, and everyone's recovery is different. So I decided to start trying to read a few books on brain injury and recoveries and just trying to learn what other people have done. I found this book, and the guy who wrote it was a brain injury survivor, and he's a cyclist as well, same as me. So I read his book, and he mentioned just trying to write in the journaling as well. So I said, okay, this is a good idea. I might just try and expand on what I was writing each day. So I write how I was feeling, like emotionally, what goals I had, and just trying to understand the process of what had happened to me from the day to the hospital and what people had told me. I basically had, I think it was 12 months of journaling writing, and it finally came to me where I think, I reckon I've got a book here. So I showed my wife, Bianca, and I said, she didn't know I'd been doing it. She just knew that I'd been journaling and things like that. So I said, I reckon I've got a book here. I'm pretty excited. I might try and write one. She goes, all right, go for it. So I've done it. So I showed her. She read it. She goes, wow, this is pretty good. I've still got the handwritten notes on and the book that I did it in, and I've reread it a couple of times, and it's just early on. It's like a real young child writing, just basic English, the grammar mistakes and things like that. It's not how I used to be, but yeah, it was really the therapy part of it for me was getting all these questions that I had in my own head out on paper, and it just helped me heal the healing process. And I think it was probably about halfway where I actually accepted the new Darron and my new limitations. And then once I accepted, like, I'm going to be different moving forward to how I was, but there's no reason why I can't become better and heal myself. And from that day, there was a clear moment in time where I felt myself getting better, and my writing got better, and the quality of what I was writing about got better. So it was therapy.
Yeah. Was there a particular catalyst for that moment that triggered that moment for you?
It probably was, but I can't really remember what it was. I think it was because I used to get up. No, the one thing I used to do, because just getting out of bed every day was such a struggle because I was constantly busy. I would basically wake up, and I still do today, with like concussion feelings of headache, fogginess in the head. And I had to get up. I made sure I got up and had breakfast with my kids before they went to school, and with my wife before she went to work. Just that was my motivation, to get up and move ahead. And rather than sit on the couch all day or do nothing or go back to sleep, I just wanted to do something. I'm a pretty determined person, and I've always been, I set goals. I wanted to be something or do something positive in my life. I think once I accepted, right, Darren, this is me. What are you going to do? You're going to be a victim or a victor? And I wasn't going to be a victim. So that was the real point where I decided, I'm not going to sit here sucking my thumb. I'm just going to get on with life, and this is who I am. But yeah, I'm not ashamed about talking about it. Like, the thing with it's classified as a disability, but it's an invisible disability.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Like, if you look at me, I don't look like I'll probably look normal, but it's just the invisible disability that you can't see. That like, come and see me when I've had a couple of busy days and I'm a different person.
Yeah.
I can't talk. I can't read. I just can't. Just need to be in a quiet room. But the whole writing thing was such a. Towards when I was getting to the end of the book being published, I'll go back a step. Because when I finished my manuscript, or right, how do I get this published? So I contacted all I knew was I wasn't going to get a publishing deal. So I'll try, and in Australia or in the world, they call them ghostwriters. So it's a writer who will basically clean up your own words, clean it and edit your publishing, your manuscript, and they'll write the book on your words or finish it. So I won't say names, but I contacted an Australian ghostwriter who had co-written a couple of good books that I'd read, and spoke to her, and she said, "Your story sounds like it's amazing and such a recovery, but to be honest, you won't sell any books in Australia. I wish you all the best." And she said it would cost $50,000 if she wants to do it. So I said, "Oh, sorry, no, sorry. I don't know who's got $50,000 that's laying around." But then that's probably the best thing that she could have said, because that gave me more determination to actually do it.
Yeah.
And then the book that I read, David Grant, whose name is from America, and who's he's also a traumatic brain injury survivor. He's done the ghostwriting aspect, and he runs a company in America called David Grant Books. And I've read his book, and I was inspired by his book as well. So I just emailed him and told him, "This is what I've got. This is my story. Any chance of doing a deal with you?" And within 24 hours, I think it was, he emailed me back, and he said, "Wow, this is amazing, Darren. This story is something the world needs to hear." I said, "Well, sounds more positive."
Yeah, that's right. Never mind Australia. Let's go the whole world.
Yeah. And so David was great because he developed my website, did the book, which is available on Amazon as an e-reader or a paper cover or soft cover. And he he develops a magazine in America, which is a monthly subscription. You can get it for free, but it's all about brain injury and carers of brain injured survivors and things like that. So I was reading a lot of what he was doing. So I think it was January 2017 we started working together. So we worked through chapter by chapter where I emailed him all the, I had to type up my handwritten notes, which took me 2 months to write, to type up, because it's pretty much a 2-finger typer, trying to remember where the letters were. Then I emailed that across to him. And then we just worked through each chapter at a time where he edited it, correct spelling and grammar. But he actually said it was the first book that he'd worked on where he hardly edited. He edited about 20% of it. So he goes, "You've done such a great job." I said, "Oh wow, that's pretty good." And then that was June last year, so June 2017, it was out and available. And so it's just gone over 12 months now, and I keep a tab on the numbers that it's sold, and it's up to about 650 copies now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm proud of it. Yeah, really am proud, because it's on my website. I can see which countries have bought it or downloaded it. So far, there's about 16 different countries that have people have bought it from.
Yeah.
It's travelling more than me.
You've got to start chasing your books around.
Yeah.
Excellent. And I understand you do get a fair bit of feedback from readers as well. And tell me about how they've connected with you and how you've inspired them.
Yeah. Well, I've had when I first got out of hospital, the main priority, when I come to the realisation I was writing a book, I said, right, my goal is if I can help just one person that's going through what I went through and my family went through, that would be worth it. Because I said, when I was trying to learn what happened to me and why can't I get better, I just didn't know what to turn to. But yeah, early on, once the book was made available and David used his magazine to advertise it, and just friends of family and all tell everybody. I was slowly getting emails from people from around the world and Messenger, and it was all about the positivity of how the recovery that I did was basic. So I returned to natural resources like what I ate, the diet I changed, exercise and music, playing a musical instrument. I'm learning a guitar. And a lot of people have said that they've done the same things, or they've spoken to a family member who's had a brain injury themselves, and they've highly recommended them try just the basics of recovery. Be patient with yourself, because it takes time. So yeah, like I haven't had any phone calls, but it's always just messages or emails where people have emailed me about, "Oh, your book's fantastic. It's an easy read," because we've done it in a way. Even the font in the book is a little bit larger than normal, and that's supposed to be easier. It's deliberately done that way, so it's easier for people with brain injury or difficult of reading can read the words better. And it's a sense of gratitude, really, of when you hear a stranger will contact you and reach out to you and ask you for help. And I've even had people contact me and ask, "How do I write a book?" How do I they might say, "I've written like a rough book. How do I get it done?" So I can refer people to David Grant, who helped me, or people that I know in Australia here. Yeah, it's like a bit of a network where I've helped people get their books done or give them advice on how to get it done. And obviously, Facebook's around on everything at the moment, and I created my own business page or commercial Facebook page about 2 months ago, and it's called Darron Eastwell's TBI Journey.
Oh, yes.
I've got about, I think there's about close to 500 followers already.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm getting people that are sending me messages, or I like posting a few things everything that I'm doing, or if I read an article about an organisation in Australia that are helping brain injury recovery or research, I post that up there. So it's like a bit of information basis as well. So I was contacted last week, I think it was. They're called the Australian Brain Alliance, and they posted a message about my story and recovery, and they're trying to get politicians to basically agree to funding or provide funding in Australia for brain research, like dementia, TBI, all sorts of things, and strokes. So it's like having a voice to try and help the ones that can't talk also or can't have a voice. So it's quite humbling when it's almost like a business card, I call it, having a book. It can open doors for you too.
Yeah, yeah.
Used to people of all walks of life. Whereas if you've got a book, it helps people think, oh wow. And I've gone and done all on the Sunshine Coast. I've done about six of the largest independent bookstores.
Okay.
I've done author days on them. So that's where I go there and I'm selling my book, talking to the people. And everyone I've gone to, person that have bought a book knows someone that's sustained a brain injury as well. And we're connecting and just referring or comparing stories of what worked and what didn't. It's really good that I can help people. That's what I really want to do. I like talking about how it helped me. The things that I've done, as I said, I take no medication. I really believe recovery is your mindset. Like I know there's a time and a place for doctors and medication, but I think if you do it the natural way, I've used a lot of essential oils as well. So I'm proof that you can, not 100%, and I'll never be 100%, but I'm saying close to 90% of what I was, and that's pure. I've pretty much dropped out drinking alcohol, watch what I eat, essential oils. I use that daily, and exercise.
Wonderful. And going back to mindset as well. I mean, obviously you're a very determined person. You've got a really positive outlook. But were there any, I guess, emotional challenges when you were going through this, this process of discovering the new Darron and learning these limitations? Tell us about that.
Well, I would have cried a river. I'll tell you that much. There was nights when I couldn't sleep. When I first got out of hospital, I just couldn't sleep. I was tired, exhausted during the day. Then when I would go to bed, I might get a couple of hours sleep, and I'd have broken sleep. Yeah, there was times where I was so confused of what had happened, and I couldn't work. My role in my family, where I was always the one that went out to work, and we funded, because my wife didn't work, looked after my kids. So our roles have changed, where she has had to go out to work now and help the family and the food and the bills and that sort of stuff. So it was tough. There's definitely times where I thought, my future's gonna happen. Like, luckily for me, I had insurance cover. But that insurance claim process was an 18-month time for it to be approved. So I was just emotional wreck during that stage, like stressful. Are we going to be able to keep the house? Are we going to have to move back to Victoria to be closer to family? The difficulty in being a completely different person, not remembering. There's one strength that I know I had before the accident was I had an unbelievable memory where if I went somewhere or drove somewhere, I'd remember it. Whereas now, early on, I couldn't remember what I'd done within half an hour. So that was what I found really frustrating. But yeah, so emotional. And my family, the kids and Bianca, they were just the biggest motivators. They helped me because they were one thing with a brain injury person or anyone that's injured, I suppose you need that network to comfort you and provide for you or just help you along the way. And they were probably my own family that come up and visited and support. I believe I'm a better person now because of the injury and what I've gone through.
That's interesting.
I'm a better person and closer to my parents, to my wife, my kids, and my extended family and friends. Probably more of a pest to them now because I read too much.
But why do you think that is? What is it, because you've taken that step back from that hustle and bustle of the corporate world, or what do you think it is that has made that happen?
Oh, well, it's just, you can't take life for granted. I know now that it could be gone in a blink of an eye, and I just appreciate the simple things. Like, I love spending time with my kids, my family, and my wife. They're everything to me. And I like just doing this. Like, we live on the Sunshine Coast, which is we're in paradise here. We're very lucky. That's another probably reason why I'm healing well too, because I'm in a warm environment where we've got the beaches, rainforest. You know, we go for a lot of, within half an hour any direction, you could be in a different environment. And I've used the Sunshine Coast environment to heal, where I've gone swimming in the ocean just to feel the sun on your face. You just don't take things for granted. And I always used to, I never used to think I did, but I obviously did, because I was always like, I've got to do things for work, for bank. Why am I probably putting their family and friends behind that, where it should be the other way. It should be the other way around. You put yourself and then your family first, and then work. I know you have to work and pay the bills to provide and things like that, but I really encourage anyone out there, if you're not happy in what you're doing, find something that is going to make you happy. I feel I'm the happiest I am in my life. I laugh more. I've been doing a lot of things I never used to do, like reading, like writing books. There's my book there.
Perfect.
And here's a magazine that I'll put that in there.
Yeah,
one.
why not?
That one. Those two there, they're the American magazine that I was talking about, that I've written a couple of pieces for. So I've what I do with my time now, so I read a lot. I've read about, I don't know, I think there's about 40 books in the last 3 years that I've read. And I never used to read. The last book I read was when I was in high school. So I started reading to help with my speech and just learning new things. So reading a lot. I've even done a few public speaking gigs where I talk about my journey. What's happened along the way.
Tell me about the first time you took to the stage, or you stood in front of a group of people and just, I guess it would have been opening up for the first time, really. I know you've poured it all into the book, but to talk to a room full of people is a completely different dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, when I got asked, I'll give them a bit of a plug here. It was Stories of Hope on the Sunshine Coast.
Yes, I'm hoping to have Carry On soon.
Oh, good. Yeah. Now, actually, I went to it again last night. So in October last year, Kerry contacted me because there was an article in the Sunshine Coast Daily about what had happened and about the book. And so I had never met Kerry or spoken to her or heard of Stories of Hope. So she contacted me to see if I'd be interested in catching up and having a chat. And then she told me what she does. And so she invited me along to just have a look. So I went along, and she has 2 speakers there on the night. I thought, oh, this is good. Then she asked, would I be interested in talking? So I said, oh, yeah, I'll give that again. So I think on the night there was me and another lady that was speaking, and there was probably about 60, 70 people there, so the room was quite full. But to my amazement, I wasn't nervous. I'd spoken in front of crowds before in my job.
Of course.
I was a bit, not petrified, but I was very nervous because I felt that they were judging me, or what am I going to say? Is it going to be the right thing? But when I got in front of the audience, I was fine. I was said what I wanted to say. I kept on track. Didn't get too emotional. I did. I remember I did have a bit of a tear in my eye at one stage when I started talking about my family and what they had done.
Yeah.
It was another part of healing where I could tell my story or share my story to strangers, and then people coming up to me after the event and saying, "Wow, that's amazing to hear what you've done." So it was real uplifting time, and since then I've spoken at about, I think there's about 6 that I've done, and it's same topic, talking about recovery, mindset, brain injury. But yeah, I hope, fingers crossed, there's another big one happening in September later this year, which is the main organisation in Australia, which is Brain Injury Australia, having an annual conference at the Princess Alexandra Hospital, which I was a patient at. So hopefully I can get a gig there where I'm a guest speaker. That would be a real highlight for me to be speaking there and telling what I've done to hopefully help out others.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, obviously these chats we're having, and I've done a few podcast chats as well, so it's been a good ride.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Speaking of rides, have you gotten back on a bike yet? A road bike or any other kind of bike?
Yeah. Well, actually, it was, what was it? Not quite a year. It was 280 days since my accident. I actually got back on the bike, and I went for a ride. And had my good wife there was watching me, so I was very nervous. I was really worried that day. What happens if I fall? And you think, oh, why did you do that?
Yeah.
But I made it back unharmed. No events, so it was really good. So since then, I pretty much ride every second day. My bike, because I can't drive, I pretty much ride just around where I live or go to the gym or anything like that. So, yeah, pretty much back on the bike. I'm not doing the crazy downhill speeds that I was doing, but yeah, it just feels like another form of recovery where I can navigate my way where I'm going and don't fall off.
I guess mentally it would have been quite a huge breakthrough for you to even just get that first ride done and to go, yep, I've found another part of the old Darron almost.
Yeah, it was, because even at that stage I was still struggling with dizziness, and my eyesight was really bad then, so I had to just take it. We're only going really, really slow, and there was a couple of stages where I was travelling along just the footpath, but it was going in and out of the shade and the sunlight, and that's probably for about 100 metres I sort of struggled a bit, but once I got through the different light, it was okay. But yeah, no, it's been my form of transport for the last 2.5 years.
Excellent. Hopefully you can upgrade to 4 wheels soon.
Hopefully, yeah. The bike's cheaper than the car too.
True. Yeah, true that. Excellent. All right. And so, obviously, moving ahead, you'll be looking to do a lot more public speaking, connecting with a lot more people through your book, which is amazing. I wanted to see if there were any other, you've dropped a few kind of gems or pearls of wisdom along the way through our conversation, but if there was any poignant message that you wanted to give to the listeners to help them with any challenges that they might come across in their lives.
Yeah. I've said this already, but I'll just recap on it. I just honestly believe you just can't take life for granted and appreciate the little things. Like I lost pretty much all capability of functioning. I didn't even know how to make a cup of coffee, whereas now I love just going out, having a coffee. Just to talk to a friend you haven't spoken to for a while, reconnecting with people. And it's not about all the material things that us as humans want. It's the little things. Just don't take life for granted, and just set yourselves small, achievable goals. And then once you achieve those goals, just reset. Keep resetting goals, and live a happy life.
Excellent. So are there any tips to, I guess, what constitutes an achievable goal?
Yeah. Well, like most people, and I was guilty of it too, like when I first started my own physical rehab, I used to think, well, I used to do a fair bit of running, and I'd run between 5 and 10 Ks each time I went for a run. So I thought, as soon as I get out of hospital, I'm going for a long distance run. But mine was, as I said, you've got to know identify your physical capabilities, and you've got to build it up. Just over the time frame where you can, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's exercise or you want to read a book, but you've never read a book before or you struggle to read, just read one page. Then the next day or the next time you pick it up, read 3 pages. Just slowly increase what you do, and over time it will get better. It's a discipline thing, it's a time management thing. So you've got to, I'm a big believer of writing things down. Don't try to remember it all, because we've got so much going on in our lives, and it's impossible to remember everything, even with a brain injury. Just write everything down. And even what I do every year for the last 3 years, I've written my yearly goals. So I've written short-term and long-term goals, but no specific date when I'm going to achieve it. And I have a visualization board. And on that visualization board, I have things that I want to achieve, but I have no set goals. So it might happen in 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, but I'm looking at it every day. I'm a big believer. If you visualize something, it will happen. It's on the front of your mind, on the top of your mind, but you don't put a time frame on it.
Excellent. Now that's really sound advice for everyone. I think I've probably learnt a few things there myself. Excellent. Thank you so much, Darron. So Darron, you can find Darron's website, www.darron, spelled Darron, Eastwell, EASTWELL.com.au. You can buy copies of his book, The Day I Broke My Brain, from that website and also from Amazon. So make sure you check him out, give him a bit of love, and connect with him if he's really helped to inspire you and in your own journey, whatever that might be. So thank you so much for your time, Darron. Appreciate that.
No worries, Roxy. It's good.
All right.